Hello and welcome to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education Research Center here at Murray State University, and welcome back to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Grow West, the Technology Council of West Kentucky, KY Innovation, and local partners Sprocket Innovation in Paducah and the Kentucky Innovation Station in Madisonville. This is episode 211. So if you do some math here, this is the first episode of what is beginning our fifth year of doing 10 at 10. So 210 wrapped up our fourth year. 211 starts our fifth year of doing these episodes. It's amazing that we have been doing this for 4 full years, going into our fifth year. But I think it's something that's important. Each year that we have had 10 at 10, I've started the year out the exact same way with what the overall goal was when we started 10 at 10. 10 at 10 was designed as a way to help users, help organizations to briefly get some ideas of things that they can do to better their security posture personally, for your family, and for your organization. And I started that out each year by looking at some security best practices. So what are some of those things that we can do that we should be doing already? And for me, I use the same list, the same general slide that I have been using for a long time, because really what our minimum security standards that we should have really not changed a whole lot. Now, how we do it in the level of detail, sure, that's changed. But, over the coming weeks, we're going to dive into each of these areas in more detail than I do today. But first of all, we need a policy. You need a policy. I call this step 0 because this is the default. And the reason a policy is the default is that if you don't know what you're protecting, if you don't know the security level that you need, then how do you know you need any security? Security is really about risk. It's about managing risk into the acceptable level of risk tolerance within your organization. That's complicated. I get that. But what that means is that we have a policy that directs. How do we know that we need to secure it? What level of security do we need? How do we do all that? I'll get into that in the coming weeks. So let's assume we get a policy that we know what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, the ramifications if something bad happens, how to respond if there's an incident, all those types of things. We'll get into that. So assuming that base level's there, that middle bar, minimum security standards, those are 5 things. I'm not saying number 1's more important than number 5. Those are 5 things that we should be doing. First is passwords and MFA. We have to have stronger passwords, strong, unique passwords using multi-factor authentication. That's a must that we should do. And frankly, too many organizations, too many individuals are reusing passwords. That's a no-no. Have weak passwords. That's a no-no. We should do that. Second of all, endpoint security. We need to have endpoint security so that if something is on your computer, if something is being done to your computer, that there's a way to detect it and to stop it. And we'll go into more about that as well. Security, education, awareness, and training. Your people, the workers of your organization, the human factor is probably the most important line of defense that we have. And what I mean by that is that more attacks have a human factor element. It might be because they have weak passwords. It might be because a lot of different things, but because of the human element, it makes it easier for the adversary, for the threat actor to traverse through our network. The human element is very, very important. A lot of times it's the human element that clicks the link. It's the human element that opens the file that they shouldn't have. It's the human element that opens the back door to let the bad guy in. That's a problem. Monitoring. So what do I mean by that? If you look at the statistics, there's a lot of organizations that a bad guy can be on their network for months before they realize that they even have a problem. So, if you're not looking, do you know that you even have a problem? That's a concern. We've got to make sure that we're monitoring our network so that if there is a problem, that we know what to look for or we know what it is. And then finally, the number five step for the or number five component of our minimum standards should be backups. You got to have backups. If you get hit with ransomware, there's a decision that you have to make. Do I pay or not pay? If you talk to the FBI, if you talk to the Secret Service, if you talk to the feds are going to say, state police probably as well, don't pay, don't pay, don't pay. I agree. You should not pay a ransom. If you pay a ransom, you're just reinforcing this bad behavior. But the reality is, if you don't have backups of your files, then you really have no choice. You're almost forced to pay the ransom because you're not going to have a way to restore your network or restore your system. So you're going to have to pay. So backups are really important, and we'll talk about there's a strategy for backups: 3-2-1, 3 copies, 2 medium, 1 offsite, and we'll talk about that in more detail in the coming weeks as well. And finally, an ongoing step. So if the preliminary step is having a policy, and the minimum standard is the things that we should do, that ongoing piece is to test and assess what we have. That we should always be testing, we should always be assessing, we should be reassessing our risk, reassessing our assets, seeing what threats have changed, and then going back to those minimum security standards. Should I be doing more of these different areas? That's a question. And really what it comes down to, and I like using this analogy. On one side, you got Barney from Mayberry, and Barney had 1 bullet. And the reality is, our companies don't live in Mayberry. We need more than 1 bullet to protect our organizations. But on the other end of the spectrum is this full-on, all-out assault team that you see in the picture. We probably don't need that for our organization either. The reality is, most of our organization's security is somewhere in the middle of having 1 bullet and an all-out assault team. Where do we live? Where do we live? Those steps I just talked about are how we figure out where we live. You should routinely, every year, be reassessing, where do we live in that spectrum? I don't know where you live in that spectrum. That's on you to figure that out. The reality is, all of us are looking at a cost benefit piece. And maybe this is what I'll go into first before we get into the how-tos, is the cost benefit. The bad guys are going to attack you because they can make money. They are not going to spend more money to attack you than the benefit they get back. You should not spend more money in protecting your assets than the assets are worth. There's a cost benefit. We don't need everything, but we do need something. How much of that do we need? That's where we have to figure out. That's where, if we go back and look at these minimum standards, how much passwords do we need? How hard is our password strategy? How much monitoring do we need? How much training do we need? We don't need all the training that's available in the world. We don't need all the monitoring in the world, but we probably do need some. And so where that balance is, where we can strike the balance between the cost and the benefits, that's where, frankly, the sweet spot is that we need to aim for. So anyway, I hope you understand what I'm getting at. I hope you understand this. Over the coming weeks, we'll dive back into this. We'll talk about the cost benefit. First, we'll dive into the different password strategies, the different monitoring strategies, all these different areas. We'll talk through what all of that means. here on 10 at 10. If you have questions, if you need anything from me, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to help you. I'm always happy to sit down with you and your organization to walk through these pieces in more detail. If you have questions, let me know, and I'll see you next week back here on 10 at 10. Thank you. Bye.